my primary teacher was another one of my mentors, and that was Dr. Daniel Morgan, whose church I now have.
That's the Guidance Church.
Yeah, Guidance
Church in Los Angeles.
So Dr. Dan was primarily the one who was in charge of the classes that I took. The classes to become a practitioner, all of the basic fundamental spiritual classes on basic spiritual principles, you know, the same classes that you took here under Michael and I.
Yes.
Well, those were the classes that Michael and I both took under Dr. Dan at Guidance.
Oh, gosh.
And he was the pastor there at that time, taught the classes, took a special interest in me also. To such a degree that I was one of the few that as the moment I graduated out of practitioner training, he put me on the teaching staff. I got a license, he put me on the teaching staff. He was also a wonderful place. I remember a period of time when my wife and I were going through some struggles and some challenges. We went to see him. And he was such a rock of strength and support in helping us to move through those. And the places that he held me accountable for standing in my spiritual authority and spiritual truth and what I knew to be true. Then there was Juanita Dunn. I called Dr. Dan the father of the church, and Juanita Dunn, I called her the mother of the church. Profound mystic, powerful mystic soul. And she taught the classes also. Her and Dr. Dan were the two primary teachers. And so she was responsible in many ways for the deepening of my soul's connection, for that deep and profound surrender to the Spirit, for that space of wanting to step into my greater divinity and my greater strength. And she saw in me, even while I was still going to practitioner training before I actually became a practitioner, she wanted to do workshops with me. And it had never been done where there was a practitioner doing workshops with someone who was not a practitioner. And so Dr. Dan said, I'm not ready to open that can of beans, you know, so let's wait till he becomes a practitioner, and then you can do some workshops together. And I was fine with that because I loved the idea that she just felt high enough about me to want me to do that.
Absolutely.
In the first place.
Believed in you.
Yes, absolutely. So there was, you know, that's her. And then the next couple of mentors are even more personal than those two. It's my mom and my dad.
Is that right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about why.
My dad was always into matters of spirit. And he studied all of the world religions and all of Egyptian cosmology and the Rosicrucians and the Masons and everything.
Must have been a very curious man.
Yes, he was. But more so than that, which was a profound thing, was my dad was one of these Renaissance people. He was a jazz musician by trade. He played piano. He had a beautiful, deep baritone voice.
As do you.
Yeah, thank you. And he was an actor. He had a profound interest in science and the sciences, in science fiction, in sports, in music. And so the varied interest in all matters concerning everything in the world, including politics and philosophy, I picked a lot of that up from my dad. And we would sit down and we would talk, and my dad made sure that I was catching what I needed to catch in order to be what I was here to be. To such a degree that sometimes my dad loved debating and he loved sharpening my mental fortitude. And so sometimes he would take a position that was diametrically opposed to a position that I was taking. And my dad didn't really believe that, but he was doing that devil's advocate thing to sort of see to what degree that I could back up what I was talking about. One of the things my dad wanted me to be sure of, he says, son, make sure that the positions you take are not just based upon emotion. It's fine to have fire and passion in it, but you need to be able to intellectually and astutely back up whatever it is that you believe in, so that when you're explaining it, if someone questions you or tries to bring you to task on that, you have a way of backing that up. And so part of his way of sharpening my skills in that was to engage in these debates and sometimes taking these wild, outlandish positions that were the polar opposites of what I believed and what I was talking about.
Interesting.
And I learned a profound thing because my dad, who was 6'4" and 250 pounds, he was a big man. He didn't rule the house with like this iron fist, like the old school children are to be seen and not heard and do what I say and nothing of that. My dad always believed that we were beings of intelligence.
Yes.
And that we could be reasoned with and we could be talked to. And if there was a concern where I had crossed the line, he would sit me down and we would have a conversation about that. And also, even where the rules of the household were concerned, my dad would say, all right, son, here's the rules. But if you have an idea of a way that you think might work better, I'm open to listen to those suggestions.
Wow.
And so there would be times where I felt there was another way we could do something, and I would talk to my dad. We'd have a conversation about that. And on occasion, he would say, that's a good idea, son. We'll try it your way and see how that works. And then sometimes it would be, it's a good idea, son. However, I think we're going to do it my way because my way feels like it's going to work a lot better than that. But I like that you're thinking and that you've given it some thought.
So he encouraged all kinds of extra new thinking.
Yes, new
That's
thinking, outside of the box thinking.
Yeah.
Don't just do what you're told. Don't just accept things on face value. Think for yourself. That was a big thing in my family. In fact, the one time I got in the most trouble was at an early age, and I did something. I don't even remember what it was I did now. And my dad asked me why I did it, and I said because some other folks or something. My dad looked at me and it's like, son, that does not work. We don't do anything just because somebody else does it. You better have a darn good reason for everything that you're doing, and you need to be able to explain in your own words with the passion of your own heart and soul why you're doing that, or don't do it at all. And never ever come to me and tell me you did it because somebody else was doing it. That will not fly. So I learned that very, very quick, and I'm giving the mild version of how he came at me.
But you learned to stand up.
I learned to stand on that,
Yeah.
you know, and make sure that anything I do now is because I believe. It's not because I'm following what somebody else said, but it's because I believe it. It may be in alignment with what they're saying, but it's not just because they're saying that.
And don't you think that that's what mentors really help young people do too?
Yes.
Is to stand on their beliefs, but make sure that there is some reason and some power behind which you can lead.
Yes.
You can lead
Yes.
on that kind of strength.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what